a palliative care doctor explained that an expression of a wish to die may be a question rather than a statement. And the question could be, am I of any worth? Am I in the way? Do you need me anymore? He adds that patients are looking for the picture of themselves in the eyes of their beholders. If the answer is returned that they should be helped to die, it is an affirmation of what they suspected, that others now see them as worthless and superfluous. The debate as to legalize euthanasia and assisted suicide is not as novel as many seem to believe. The father of medicine, Hippocrates, must also have been familiar with the problem, for he seems to have taken a position on it in his original pledge, the Hippocratic Oath. He says, I will use treatment to help the sick according to my ability and judgment, but never with a view to injury and wrongdoing. Neither will I administer a poison to anybody when asked to do so, nor will I suggest such a course. So it is not so novel, the debate. It must have been known, this possibility. And for example, 90 years ago, the author and philosopher Gilbert Keith Chesterton said in the very same debate of his time, at present only a proposal for killing those who are a nuisance to themselves, but soon to be applied progressively to those who are a nuisance to other people. In this debate, as said, we again and again meet with two arguments that at first seem convincing, almost self-evident. The arguments go, alleviation of suffering, unbearable suffering can't be borne, and respect for self-determination or autonomy. As to suffering, there is an inbuilt inconsistency that assisted dying aims at improving life by annihilating it. It is terminating suffering by terminating the life of the suffering person. But not only suffering is ended, because through the death of the person, identity is also ended, and social connections, memories, and experiences, as well as the possibility of receiving care and love, and indeed the possibility of alleviating the suffering of a living person. As stated by a philosopher, assisted death means something good to the patient, but then the patient doesn't mean anything anymore. And then the second argument, the belief in autonomy. I might even call it the gospel of autonomy of our time. There are several problems. Will it always be really autonomous, really voluntary? Freedom of choice involves the basic problem of the patient not being exempt from having to choose. The choices claim to be free, but with legalized assisted death, the very choosing is somehow compulsory. Legalization implies pressure. Moreover, a feeling of hopelessness and of being superfluous and unwanted may be fragile basis for exerting autonomy. In other words, how autonomously can the weakest people act when the world around them deems their ill, dependent, and pained life unworthy? And this seems to boil down to the fact that the real justification of voluntary euthanasia is not autonomy, but based on the fact that some lives are not worth protecting. Almost absent from the debate is the following that I'd like to share with you. My late wife, Catherine, opened my eyes to the importance of the fact that all of us send and receive on two wavelengths of our mental transmitters, so to speak. One wavelength is cognitive or rational, the other is emotional or irrational. It is two centers of thinking, the center of the brain and the center of the heart, perhaps somewhere here. Accordingly, we use both the brain's language and the heart's language. As an example, we know that tears are water containing 0.9% of sodium chloride, but we also know that tears are grief, caring, anger, joy, etc. I lost Catherine in 2012. She had developed chronic kidney failure. She had grueling but vital sessions of dialysis, 4 hours dialysis, a break the following day, then again. For many hours immediately after dialysis, she was exhausted and nauseated. As the time for the next dialysis approached, the accumulation of fluids started to torment her. Her breathing became labored, and she had pressure across the chest. The fear of the next dialysis was gradually superseded by a paradox longing for it to ease her situation. But she yearned so badly for normal days without pain and nausea, but they were few and far between. And there was an overwhelming certainty that there was no prospect of recovery. "I know what I can do," she said one day. "I've been thinking it over. Want to hear?" I nodded cautiously. Her eyes came to rest on me. She was serious. "Well, one night I'm going to open up the dialysis catheter. The blood will slowly drip out. Because of the anticoagulation therapy, it won't stop. I'll slowly fall asleep." And then, hardly pausing, she added, No, when you look at me like that, I won't do it." Catherine was thinking of taking her own life for her own sake, but refrained from it again. Did she tell me about her plan to find the courage to carry on living? Because I believe it gave her strength that despite pain and misery, there was something to live for. Had I only had the brain's language, I could have said, "I do understand you. You are in a terrible predicament. You shall not be alone. I will be there holding your hand while it happens." Wouldn't that have sounded quite responsible and caring? But the heart's language could not find such words, could only express shock and sadness. A patient may feel redundant already when he or she makes a request for assisted dying, but this feeling of redundancy can be reinforced when he or she is met with a rational understanding that it is best to go to one's rest now. And can confidence within the doctor-patient relationship then be maintained? Can the patient suspect that there are hidden agendas behind the white coat? That was the two arguments about unbearable suffering and the gospel of autonomy. And then this, that we don't think in only one way. We're not only rational, we receive and send on two wavelengths. And I think it is forgotten in the debate that there is another wavelength that is also being used, non-verbal perhaps, but with body language, etc. And then the expansion, as Ashley has already mentioned, there is evidence of a slippery slope, but there is also a driver of it. The aim of euthanasia is well-intentioned. It's always phrased like that. Who's going to limit benevolence? And all that is well meant. And then we are already seeing it. A number of countries, as John mentioned, have given us an object lesson in this development. There is a logical mission creep using equality law, Euthanasia is extended from terminally to chronically ill, adults to children, mentally competent to mentally incompetent. I might use another metaphor here than the slippery slope, and it might be the metaphor of the crossing of Rubicon. Caesar came to Rubicon and crossed it, you know. It's taking an irrevocable step, a point of no return, because no law has ever been able to be ruled back. It cannot be done, unfortunately, and therefore we in Denmark are extremely careful about this and warn our politicians about this step. Thank you.